Welcome to The Graveyard. Today's guest is a successful social media star, model, activist, and all-around boss mom. She was featured in season 1 of Netflix The Circle and was easily named the season's fan favorite. She's the openly queer girl that speaks her mind and is constantly showing up for her communities. Please give a warm welcome to the beautiful and absolutely brilliant Sammie Cimarelli. Hi, Sammie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. Thanks for coming on. Honestly, I'm just so fucking obsessed with you, and I'm just so grateful that you're here.
I'm so excited. I can't wait.
I feel like let's start, obviously, with your experience from The Circle, which is where everything for you really changed.
Yeah.
You came on to The Circle being so open about your sexuality, about who you were as a person. You were just so genuine and authentically you the second you came on. Was that hard? Did you feel anxious having cameras on you the entire time, or did it just come naturally to you?
To be honest, I feel like I was always like the party starter and the center of attention. Like with my family growing up, it would always be like my parents or my dad, like someone being like, Sammie, go learn to dance in the back of the room. We're going to give you 5 minutes to learn to dance and then come out here and perform it for us. Like I've been doing that since I was little, like literally since I was a kid. And so growing up, I just had this big personality. I was never like put in a box. My parents were always just like, well, here's Sammie, you know? So when it came to having cameras on me, I didn't really care about the cameras. It was more so learning the technology of what The Circle was. That was like kind of hard because I'm such a talker. Like all I do is talk. And it was kind of hard to keep up with like how fast I was talking and my thoughts. And then with everyone else talking, it was like I couldn't really get out everything that I wanted to say.
Right.
So I'm like, that would kind of get me frustrated because it's like, it's picking up what we're saying. So
totally.
Everyone, there's like 9 people or 8 people at a time trying to talk and get to know each other.
But it's like you're basically just texting with the people the entire time. So you can't really get everything that you want out over text without being one of those people that has like the paragraph messages that nobody wants to read. So
yep. Which is me. Which is literally me.
Same. People always like, Courtney, can you just cool it a little bit? Like, I'm like, no,
I have a lot to say.
So much. I know. And I deserve to say it.
Yes.
When you were growing up, what age did you come out as bi? How was that experience for you?
I think, so I had an older cousin. Well, I still have an older cousin. He's alive.
Okay.
I have an older cousin. And I told him when I was in 5th grade that I had a crush on a girl. And he was like, okay, like, it's good that like your parents, like our family isn't going to judge you. But, just figure it out first, like explore, like really know what you want first before you make it a big to do. Because at that time, coming out was like a huge, like I came out to my family, like it was like so dramatic. And like, it was still a time where I grew up. I didn't see, other than the people in my family, I didn't see like 2 women dating or 2 men dating. Like that wasn't like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something you like talked about and like bragged about. You know what I mean? And so I went throughout middle school and I had a boyfriend, like an in-school boyfriend. My parents were very strict. And then when I went to high school in 9th grade is when I met my ex-girlfriend. And that's when I told my parents that I liked girls. And I lost it. I was like crying to my best friend because we would take showers together, not like weirdly. We would just like take showers together or we would get changed in front of each other, like just like do things, whatever. And nothing ever happened between us, but I didn't want her to think that because I saw her naked. Like I was looking at her like that. Like I looked at her like my physical sister. And so like I was bawling my eyes out. I was like, I like girls, but I don't want you to think I like you because I definitely don't. And
no
whatever. Like no offense, but like I don't.
Yeah.
And she was like, her dad was super, super Catholic. And so she was like, dude, you're fine. Like you're okay. And then my parents were on the way home and I was like, well, I have to tell my parents. And I kid you not, I was raised by my aunt, my uncle, and my aunt sat on my bed And I didn't know this, but I have an Uncle Sam who passed away a few years ago. Rest his soul. Love him to death. He was gay and I didn't know. And his little friend that he always had around, who I thought was his bestie for the restie, was his man.
No
And
way.
yes, and I didn't know that. My little brother's middle name, he's named after my Uncle Sam. Gavin Samuel is my brother's name. And so my aunt, we're sitting on my bed and I'm like, I like girls. I'm like bawling my eyes out. And she was like, oh, I thought it was something like serious. And I was like, this is fucking serious. And she was like, we knew, like, we've known since you were little that you liked girls. And I was like, fuck you, because why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, how are we going to tell you? And I'm like, well, I was scared to tell you, but like, if you knew, why wouldn't you let me know? And she was like, you know, Uncle Sam's gay. And I was like, my whole world just stopped. And I was like, no. And Keiko was like, well, you have to tell Uncle Sean. Like, he's not going to be upset. He's probably going to be happy about it. So he comes in and I'm like crying. And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I like girls. And he was like, did you think that we thought every Christmas when you asked for a basketball net and a hockey net, a glow in the dark hockey net, and you're asking for footballs, like we thought you were going to be like this girly girl who like loved men? Like, come on, let's be honest. And I was like, damn, okay, so I don't have to be crying about this. And they were like, no, but we will be treating any girls now from here on out just the same way we treated boys. Like, nobody's allowed in your bedroom, no sleepovers, no nothing. And I was like, but I can't make babies with a girl, so like that's not fair.
That's not
They're
a
like,
way.
no. They're like, nope, it's the same thing. You have to treat it the same way. And so that's how it
I
was.
love that though. I love that that was
Yeah.
like the thought behind it was like, okay, well, they're treated the exact same then. And that's just how we're gonna parent.
And that's how it went. And I had a girlfriend for 3 years that they loved. We went on vacation together. We went to the Bahamas. We went down to the beach. And yeah, they fully like just embraced me.
Oh, do you still keep in contact with your ex?
Like we did throughout the years, but it's been so long. I was literally 16 years old. I'm gonna be 30.
Yeah.
So that was like half my life ago.
I feel like I connect with some exes because one of mine, when I think we dated from like 15 to 19, was just kind of adopted by my family, like not in my choice at all. Like my mom and him just got so close that he never left. And now it's kind of weird to think that we dated because he's almost like a brother in a weird way. Like he's just been adopted into the family. He's always at family gatherings. He's at Christmas and everything. And he's always there. And I love him dearly. We're so close. We're really, really great friends now. But when you think about the people that you were back then and when you were like 16 years old, we've both changed so much, but it's still crazy to think back to like who we were as people in that time period and then see them now today, what they're doing. It's just wild how much change happens in like those specific 15 years of like teenager to like coming into 30. I feel 30. I'm 31. I'm going to turn 32 this next year. And it feels that way now. Like I stopped drinking because I was like, I can't do it anymore.
Wait, that's so funny. I don't drink because of that.
I can't do it. I can't function.
Hangover for a week long?
No. And I never got it. Like I remember being early 20s and people being like, oh, hangovers after 30. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. But no, I remember being like hungover for like 4 or 5 days when I was in the UK after drinking. I was like, this is not worth it. I have shit to do. Fuck it.
No, literally. Right after I had my son, my dad came to visit me in California. And I went out one night, like maybe 5 hours in my deathbed for like the rest of the time that he was there. Like he was there for like a week. And I remember we were out and I was like, and he was like, girl, you drank like 4 days ago. Come on. Like, get it the fuck together. And I was like, Dad, this is not okay. And I have a baby to take care of. Like, I can't do this.
You can't do it as a mom.
This is not cute. It's just not cute for me. So I know how to drink now. I know what alcohol I can drink. I know that I need to drink water. I know that I need to eat. I know how to keep myself together now. But like,
I don't even have anything I can drink. It's like beer, wine, spirits, anything.
All of
like
it.
Tequila. Yeah. No, just none of it's my friend anymore. And it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get anxiety too when you're hungover?
The worst. Like panic attacks that like rock my world.
Yep.
I like need to turn off all devices and like just put on either like really trash binge reality TV where it's like I can just completely zone out, or like Disney movies where I feel like my like inner child is just like, okay, we can sit here.
I thought I was alone. I literally thought I was alone because my sisters, I'm the oldest. And well, one of the second oldest, but my older sister lives in Orlando. And I'm with all my younger sisters, and I was like comparing myself to them, and they're fucking 21. And I'm like, dude, you don't get anxiety when you're like the next morning? They're like, no. And I'm sitting here like, cool. Like I'm like shaking, like literally about to die because I have the worst anxiety. And like I could remember the whole night, but in my head, I don't remember anything, and I don't know what I did, and I don't know if I made a fool of myself, and I don't know who I saw, but I know everything. But in my head, like somehow my anxiety is convincing me I was a completely different person the night before.
Totally. And also just having a presence, I think, on social media, you like immediately open up stories and you're like, please, 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 please. And all of a sudden you see like a bunch of those little bars at the top of Instagram and you're like, fuck. Oh my
Yep.
God, what is that?
Yeah.
Then
Like
I have to
why?
wait an hour until I open it because I need to give myself a mental pep talk.
Yeah. Literally. Okay. I'm
Um,
glad to know I'm not alone.
it's funny when you brought up gagging, that's something that I think the circle caught on to a lot. And that's something that happens. We share that. I don't know why, but like me and my two best friends, like gagging just became part of our nature. I
Mm.
don't know how it happened or when that happened, but it was like anything like a bad smell, food, um, I'm running on a treadmill. Like it literally could be anything. And then I
Yeah.
saw when I was rewatching your season before the interview, and they did like a little recap, I think, in the finale of you
Compilation.
gagging, and I died. Has that always been something that you struggled with?
Absolutely. I have the weakest stomach, like the weakest stomach. And it's so funny that you bring this up because literally like a few days ago, I was with someone and we were watching the Squid Game on Netflix,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're doing the lick challenge where they have to lick it, and like, and I'm gonna gag thinking about it,
Oh
bro.
my God, when the
But
spit was
this
dripping down,
the spit,
oh my God, I
and
had the same thing.
I was physically like dry heaving, like about to throw up, like actually. And like a couple days later, they were like, "Wait, were you actually gagging? Like, or were you kidding?" And I was like, "Who kids about that? Like, who? Like, I was fit, like my body was convulsing.
I
You thought I
had the
was joking?
exact
Like,
same
I was trying to
reaction.
be cute. You think that's a cute thing that someone wants to do? Because it's
No,
not.
nobody wants it. It's embarrassing, but it's
No,
uncontrollable. So we
no.
just need to be loved for it. I had the same thing. The guy that was kind of having the bit of a mental breakdown and he was just like lathering it. I was like, oh my God, please stop. Stop. I can't fucking handle it.
That can literally stop me in my tracks just thinking about him in
Okay,
that.
we're
Oh,
gonna move on. We're gonna get off of the topic of him because
please,
that was no bueno.
no.
Talking about social media, that was something that blew up. And you had said, I think in an interview with like Amanda Geffner, that you were fairly overwhelmed after the circle. And I would assume that when you have that mass of a following that skyrockets overnight, you're also going to get both sides. You're going to get positive people that loved you. And then, especially being openly bisexual, you're going to get a lot of that like homophobic or biphobic or, whatever group that doesn't agree with the LGBTQ community. What was that like? And how did you find comfortability in who you were as that was happening?
Um, well, first and foremost, finding comfortability in who I was is just the circle that I have around me, like my family and my friends that I've had in my life since I was 9 years old.
Mhm.
Um, when the show came out, we all had a big party at my parents' house and watched the first 4 episodes together. And everyone that has known me since I was a kid, all the people that know me best, right? And family friends that have known me since I was a child. And so we're watching it together, and my best friend Wade was holding his phone up and just like refreshing my Instagram. And like it was growing. And in that moment, I was so excited. Now, the trailer dropped December 11th, and that's when my Instagram really was blowing up.
Mhm.
But, for me being in a trailer for 5 seconds, I was like, this is nuts. But then when on January 1st, when he's like refreshing it and my Instagram just keeps growing and growing and growing, like in that moment, you're just in this like euphoric state where everything is so amazing and great. And then, those 4 episodes dropped. We all watched them. It was a great day. My Instagram's growing and growing. And then that whole week, to wait for those next 4 episodes because I'm watching them with everyone else. And I had that whole week to think about, okay, I'm thinking about filming and like what is dropping next. Like I was so anxious because I seen my other castmates and some of them weren't getting the best edit. Now,
Right.
mind you, I've known these people for a few months now at this point, and I know that not necessarily do they act that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, there's just so much. There's just so much going through your head. And you know, there was majority good things said about me, but there would be like that one comment where I would be like, you know, it would drive me nuts. And I was so confrontational at that point. They don't really give you like a media rundown on like how to go into interviews, how to go into podcasts, how to, you know, talk in articles. Like they didn't really give, what is that called? You know how actors and like,
Interview prep?
yeah, maybe like a media prep or interview prep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't give us any of that. So here I am, just like a normal person and a very confrontational normal person. And so
Mm-hmm.
like I was going back and forth with people on social media like a lot, and it wasn't healthy and it wasn't good. Like the first thing I would do when I would open my phone is go look at comments.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go to Reddit and I would type my name in on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like absolute no number one that you
Yeah.
don't do, because there's a bunch of people who don't know you. Just I would go through thousands of things, right? Comments saying how amazing I was. And there'd be like one person who's like, Sammie hates any girls who are pretty. And I would be like, what? How's that? How did you get that off
Mm-hmm.
of the show? Like what? And then I would go back and rewatch the episodes and I'm like, okay, I can kind of see where they got it. But who gives a fuck what that girl,
Totally.
one person thinks? You know what I mean? So I would just read comments. Reddit was the worst. Reddit is like the worst place ever. They don't care about shit. They
Oh
just
no,
say the
anything can
stuff.
go on Reddit. That's the thing about Reddit.
They say the meanest stuff. And I'm like, there's no way people in the world really think this way about me. Then people were saying I was racist. I didn't even know where that came from. That was like so far out of left field. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stop reading comments. And my life has been so much happier since then.
When you open yourself up to that realm of other people getting to have an opinion on you and it like going that far where, you know, there's people having full-blown conversations about you, who you are as a person, your values, like how you show up in the world. It's wild because you kind of have to turn it off. I remember there was one article that came out where there was quite a bit of buzz, and I think it was L Canada. And then I got tossed into, I'm sure, some sort of like a Facebook group or something for people that just want to abuse trans women online. And it was just like a week of like super transphobic comments telling me to go kill myself. I had like a death threat come in. It was just like, it's so wild that people feel entitled and like these keyboard warriors are like, I'm going to go and do this. But, you know, I sit down and talk to people in person, and anyone that has expressed like genuine concern, it always kind of comes down to like genuine concern of youth or their kids or, you know, women's safety and blah, blah, blah. And you just have open dialogue and conversation. Like nobody's ever that crass and crude and hurtful. But online, they're like, yeah, chop off your genitals and bleed to death. And you're like, whoa, dude.
But you would never say that to me, to my
Sunday
face.
morning at 10 a.m. Yeah, exactly. And you would never have the balls to say that.
Nope.
So it's something that I think is at least now more recognized for youth, because when we were growing up with the internet, online bullying was rampant and there was no resources for kids. Like when Facebook first came out, even MSN, you would change your messenger status and then you go to school the next day and everyone would be making fun of you for something. Or like, I mean, I was heavily bullied, so anything I did was just like basically watched and then scrutinized by all of the kids, which in a way I feel like has led me to where I am today, kind of.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, I'm glad you're all watching what I'm doing so much, but like, I don't care. I'm just going to keep doing me. But now, because of at least there being an awareness, I feel like there's resources for kids, but it still doesn't change the fact that there are so many specifically queer kids that are being bullied and harassed online. And I think it's really defeating when you're looking at social media and you see politically that all of this stuff is happening specifically in the States. and, rights being taken away from queer individuals. And then you're going to your own social media and getting harassed. I feel like the digital world can be really defeating. Do you have any advice for like young queer kids that are facing harassment right now or that want to go into the world of digital creation but are afraid of the pushback that they're going to get?
Absolutely. I am a firm believer in the block button. I block anything that makes me feel uncomfortable, even the slightest little statement. Like when I was going through a lot of things, for example, with my son's dad, like it was almost like they were going out of their way to like DM me and be like, well, he looks just like his daddy. Like that's just so
Mm,
unnecessary. Like for what? Like we know, you
hmm.
know what I mean? Like it was just like
Yeah.
little, what is that called? Passive aggressive statements. But like, love what you're doing, girl. But like, he looks nothing like you. Like stuff like that.
Mm,
Um, so I would block those people. But also, what I love about social media now is that they've included that you can block certain words. So like, if
hmm.
someone leaves a comment, that comment's gone.
Yeah.
Whatever, if it has a word in it that like you don't feel comfortable reading or don't want to see. But definitely also just practice even if you have to turn off the comments. I know that's not really good when it comes to social media engagement, when it comes to insights for brands and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But insights for brands, mental health. Like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
exactly.
mental health is up here, insights for brands is down here.
Yeah.
And, until you can actually handle that. And it took me, I would say like a year. It took me like a good year because the show came out and I was like, going, going, going. And then COVID happened. And all people had was social media to sit there and watch the
Hmm.
show and pick apart every little thing that I did and every little thing that I said and every little thing that I posted. And so it took me like a good year to really like have the mindset to not read comments and not go on Reddit, not go on Twitter.
Hmm.
But I know it's hard, especially now, and for queer youth to stay off of social media, just for the youth in general, right?
Hmm.
Um, but like sometimes a social media break is also really, really warranted. Like it's
Totally.
really, really good.
I feel like it's necessary sometimes. Like I have to just be like, okay, I realize that this is part of my job. And it's, I think, frustrating when it's also like a part of your income and you're like, I want to, be able to do this and say yes to everything and, be able to do all these collaborations. But especially in the last 6 months when I was just doing a lot of self healing, I was like, I got to take a break. And so I basically just said no to every single deal that was coming in because I didn't want to be forced to make content.
Mm,
And I wanted to just be able to like post things that felt really good for me, like little experiences that I was having or something I was doing. But I didn't want to have to like sit down and film. And my whole relationship with social media had changed a bit too, just kind of in what you were saying. Like I was focused on insights and, I had people that were working with my brand that were like, hey, you need to be hitting these targets and these targets and these targets. And then it stops being fun. Like when I started social media and how like everything started was just making stupid YouTube videos during COVID to just try to like make some people laugh. They were like comedic spoof videos. And then that kind of spiraled into like more of beauty content. Then I started my makeup brand. But once you start just looking at it as like, okay, insights, comments, engagement, blah, 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 like you really just lose touch with what is authentic in social media, which sometimes it's hard to find very much of. But when you can actually connect with your community or you're sharing stories or doing something that brings value and contributes to like a healthy conversation or education or helps people, that's where I feel like I'm actually doing something to contribute. And then I got so far away from that doing makeup tutorials and ads all the time. I was like, I don't like doing this anymore. I don't want to get up and do this at all. So I think it's trying to find that balance. But that was this podcast for me. When we sat down and we wanted to look at what the next step was, because I wanted to move away from the makeup industry in my social media and
mm,
just kind of stay present in my company, but run it differently. And the podcast was just a way to sit down, with amazing people like you. And the whole time I'm just kind of picturing like, okay, what are those like 13 to 18-year-old queer youth that are struggling, that are feeling isolated or alone, and just like every day is a bit of a challenge for them right now. what could I do to provide them something to give them a relief or give them some tools or some inspiration? And it kind of came down to, I just want to be able to have good conversations and talk to people that have been through that and come out the other side and, have successful lives and show like, here is somebody that you can, take inspiration from, or, you know, be able to feel like there's people like you out there in the world that are doing good, that are finding success, that aren't just going up against discrimination and battling depression and anxiety and, feeling hate every single day. Because it's overwhelming right now, the way that queer people are talked about, are mediatized, are targeted. And I couldn't imagine being 15 or 16 and going through that right now, and also having such a massive spotlight on everybody that's queer right now and what we're doing. It's really challenging.
No, I completely agree with everything you just said. And it was different battles, I feel like, when we were younger versus the youth now.
Mm-hmm.
And, there wasn't social media, but I feel like it was easier for people to talk about things to your face when we were younger.
They almost had to.
Exactly. They almost had to like say it to your face. Whereas they couldn't rally as many people as they can now with social media, which is the scary part.
Totally. And there's dark parts, I think, and, obviously on the internet, but there's dark parts that are targeting people that are doing the good fight and preaching love and authenticity and being yourself and being able to be proud of who you are and who you love. And, these conversations, I think, are a piece of a puzzle that help battle that and provide some relief to the ongoing just pummeling that the media and social media does towards LGBTQ 2+ people.
Absolutely. And it's crazy. I feel like we're going backwards when it comes to our community with all the things that I just see, happening. I don't want to name any specific people because we're not going to talk about politics, but, it's sad. It's really, really sad. And I find myself crying more times than not, just thinking about states with trans youth who it's like illegal to tell anyone. How do you know how terrifying that is? Like, I just think about me, 16, how I just told you, I sat down on my bed crying to my parents to tell them that I liked women, right? That's not like a physical body thing that I don't, it's not that I don't feel comfortable in my own body. It's nothing like that. I just, how I feel. I can't speak for trans youth. I'm not trans, but I can't imagine how scary it is to feel like you can't be your full self and you can't even trust to tell your parents because you don't know if they'll actually be okay and keep you safe. Oh, my heart. Like, I grab my son and I'm just like, I can't even imagine. I could not imagine. Like, I wish I could just shake some people,
Same.
And oh my gosh, it breaks my heart. And
I think that's what this whole podcast and this whole kind of just force that I'm trying to move forward with into my life now is based around, is like, how do we ensure that as many people as we can aren't feeling that way? So many people in different parts of the world still can't be open at all. It's still illegal. There's a ton of pressure. And then in the States, it is very much going backwards. And I think that it's almost more challenging seeing that there were some rights and then they're being revoked. And then there's a conversation about whether or not you should exist. Like, no, not naming names either, but there was somebody that went up and basically just said that trans people need to be eradicated. And I was like, holy fucking shit.
Like, what is going through your mind? This is a human.
Mass extinction.
This is a person.
People. Yeah. And, it's happening everywhere in the world. There's so many things that are just happening that are so fucked up. And that's why I'm like, hey, this podcast is relief. It's experience. It's inspiration. It's people that I think are really brave and genuine, like yourself, that show up as themselves and are like, no, I'll go up against adversity because being myself is more important. And that's the light for those kids, I think, to be able to listen and hear and be like, I'm not fucking alone. I can do this. It's one day at a time right now, but we'll get there because the numbers of depression and suicide in LGBTQ youth are astounding and it's troublesome. And nobody really is comprehending that these are kids that feel like they cannot go on another day. And that is what breaks my heart. But
Yeah.
these
No.
conversations, I hope, help in some way or another. And whether it's being able to laugh at somebody that you admire, gagging at everything, or the Squid Games, or hearing that there is safety out there and people are fighting the good fight, because some of them can't come out, they just,
No.
it's
Literally.
terrifying and they need to get through to the next day. So to know that other people are out there fighting while they can't, I think is also important to know that there is advocacy happening and we're never really going to give up on them.
Ever.
Yeah. Moving into you becoming a mom, because we talked a little bit about it.
Yes.
How has your experience been being a mom?
It's been amazing. It's been hard, definitely hard, but amazing. And I feel like, before having a kid, I was very much an advocate for children and, just youth in general who can't really fight for themselves. But having a son or just having a child, like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, when it comes to things like this or conversations like this, it hits me so much different. Having conversations like this hits me so much harder having a child. And it means so much more to me. But it's almost like I want to do so much, but I also just had my baby. Like, he'll be
Mhm.
2 in March. So the
Mhm.
last year and a half has been such a balancing act because I want to do so much. I want to be different places, but then it's like I have to raise this baby also.
Mhm.
And that's been really difficult for me to balance just because I'm such a hard worker. And it's like, if I don't have a full plate of things to do, it like gives me anxiety. Like, I hate empty, idle time.
Same.
And yeah, like, I hate it. Like, here I am on my deathbed, but here I am on this podcast,
Yeah,
like,
a
I
hundred
need things to
percent.
do. I feel crazy if I'm not doing stuff. And so I think that I have to learn, and I have been learning, and I have been doing a lot better with taking just time for myself to just like turn off and just like relax.
Mhm.
And I think me being sick is also like a way to like sit me down, and the universe being like, you need to chill. Like, let's just calm down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love being a mom. It's unlike anything I could have ever imagined, and it's nothing that I could have prepared for.
Oh, well, you've always been an advocate for youth. Um, you know, before you had your own child, you were looking after and advocating for autistic kids for pretty much, I mean, your entire career leading up to having your own baby. So,
Yes.
do you feel like that is something that's just driven into you? And that's just always the kind of person that you're going to be, is always kind of standing up for people that don't necessarily have people in their corner?
Yeah. I mean, I look at myself as just a person who's going to stand up, period. Whether you
Yeah.
have people in your corner or not, like, put me in your corner with the 50 other people you got, or put me in the corner with the 0 people that you have. I've just
Hmm.
always been that way. Like, and I like to bring this up because it's such a testament to like who I feel like I've always been. But when I was in elementary school, there was this person um that the class would vote for different like classroom jobs. So like someone to clean up the chalkboard and someone to take out the trash. And I forget what the person was called. Um but basically, if there were like 2 people in the class like not getting along, like, you would basically go out there and give them therapy and like be like, okay, what's going on with you guys? Why are you fighting? Is everything okay? We were freaking 6 and 7 years old. I
Aw.
always got voted that person. Like, and you could vote
Aw.
as many times, every single time. It was like once a week or every 2 weeks that we would vote. And I always got voted that person to like take people out in the hallway and like talk to them and make sure they're okay. Like, and I always thought it was like the coolest thing. And then when I went to middle school,
You're like,
one
step
of
into
the
my office.
no, literally, we would literally go out into the hallway, We'd have to stand there, like, talk, and the teacher would come out with us. It wasn't like just like a separate thing, but
Mhm.
um, it was that was like such a cool thing for me that people would still vote me to do that. And I've stopped people from getting jumped. And when I graduated high school, one of the girls who had a lot of trouble growing up I was always sticking up for her. I was always sticking up for her in school. And I didn't know that she was like going home and like telling her family about this stuff. And her mom gifted me a glass heart. It was like a pink glass heart from like Things Remembered. And it's like a store where they make like keepsakes and stuff. And it said, "Thank you for loving us." And they gifted that to me in front of my parents on my graduation day. And the mom was crying. Her mom was crying to my parents, and they were like, "I don't know if Sammie's ever told you," which I didn't. My parents were like, just like so happy. But she was like, "I don't know if Sammie's ever," and this is my first time really meeting her and like her other kids. And she was like, "Sammie has quite literally like saved my children's lives and has always been there. And like, she's a name that I've heard for years, since like elementary school, and how she would stick up for my kids and all that stuff like that." And so my parents were crying, she's crying, I'm crying, you know? And so just like, I feel like without that pat on my back, or without someone having to be like, "You should do this," or, you know, "This is the right thing." I mean, it's a testament to my parents, to my family, how they've raised me, how they brought me up. Like, I was always taught, like, if I have something to say, I need to say it. And so, yeah, that's just a testament to who I've always been since I was a kid. You know, like, there was this old lady, Eleanor, one of my grandma's friends, like years ago. And I remember we were in her kitchen. We talk about this to this day, my whole family, because it's hilarious. But I was young. I don't know how old I was, maybe 8, 7, 8. And Eleanor was very old school, old woman. Her house smelled like mothballs and just nastiness. And she was just a mean old lady. And she told me one day, like, "Samantha, you know, women shouldn't speak unless they're spoken to." And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna talk." Like, that was that. And she was just like just so taken aback. And I was like, "Who cares what you say, Eleanor? Like, nobody cares what you say, Eleanor. Nobody." And my grandma was like, "Samantha." And I was like, "Grandma, get me out of here. I want to leave this lady's house." And my grandma just laughed the whole ride home. And it was just like, I've just always been so outspoken. I just always have. And my parents have never stopped me from being that. Of course, I went through kind of a phase where it was like a fine line between, am I being disrespectful?
Yeah,
By
reel
like,
it in a little bit, but also we're gonna give you your platform, but reel it in. Yeah.
So I was like, you know, I had to learn that, because I was kind of getting in trouble in school a little bit for like saying the wrong things or talking the wrong way. But I learned quickly, and yeah, that's just always been me. So I can't talk for the LGBTQ plus youth who aren't as outspoken and like aren't gonna fight for themselves, you know? That's where it kind of gets hard, you know, when we sit there and like, I'm grateful that I'm speaking, you know, here now, and like that I can say these things, but it's also not easy for them to be like, "Okay, yeah, Sammie's doing it, like I can do it too." It's it's hard if it's not natural for you to be outspoken. It's not natural for you to stick up for yourself. And
Totally. Just
you know
existing
what I
is
mean?
political.
Just
And
existing, it's hard.
it's just being different. Like with you working with autistic kids, like I worked with them a little bit growing up as well. And I used to hang out with this like a little bit, I think, younger than me when we were in like drama school. And he was just so cool. And I think for his mom, it was just like a little bit of relief to be able to have somebody kind of go out and take him to do things. But he was the smartest guy I've ever met in my entire life. And he was just so intelligent and intellectual and fascinating. Just, I think I feel like there's a little bit more of an understanding with autism coming out now, but I don't think anyone really comprehends how genius people with autism are. And they're looked at differently because of how they communicate and how they show up in the world. But that's also just because of how they interpret the world. Like they are understanding 6 billion times more than we are in a minute. And they're trying to process that. And when you're standing up for people, whether they're queer, whether, you know, they have a special gift in their life, like autism or cerebral palsy, you know, my god sister has cerebral palsy. It doesn't matter what it is that's being viewed differently. It's just standing up for somebody that deserves to be treated with respect. And they're
Absolutely.
not. And, you know, LGBTQ youth aren't being treated with respect. You know, even kids of color are still going up against racism every day. There's still so many pieces and pockets of things that are so wrong with how our youth has to show up in the world and, strap on their own courage to go up against every single day, which is plain genuine respect. And it's different from, kids aren't born racist. They're taught racism. They're not born homophobic or transphobic. You're not born with hate in your heart as a kid. That's taught to you. And we all have to unlearn that. And we have to be able to teach respect and empathy and kindness and love and compassion and start pushing that out into the world. And that's why it's just beautiful to see parents like you that are doing that and are preaching that and are helping a lot more than, just your kid, but every other kid that's looking up to you, every young bi girl that's feeling that same anxiety, that can look up to you and take inspiration from your story and just how you show up in the world. You just went onto a show not knowing what the circle was going to do or how it was going to be, completely being yourself and throwing
I
yourself
thought it was
out
going to be a
there.
flop. I thought it was going to be a flop. Okay. I did. I was like, this isn't going to be nothing.
Everybody loves the circle. The circle is the fucking best.
It is the best. It is the best. But when it comes to working with children with autism, I worked with children with disabilities in general, but my degree is specifically in behavior analysis for autism.
Mm-hmm.
So I have worked with cerebral palsy. I worked for a woman, and I took care of her and her two kids. And I would drive them around and take them places, and I would help bathe her and stuff. And that was probably the most beautiful experience I've ever had in my life. It was when I lived in Florida. And she was just the coolest person ever. There was nothing that stopped her. There was nothing that held her back. I would come to her crying about a boy or something. She'd be like, fuck them. Who cares? Why are you crying about that? Get up, let's go. Get it together.
Yeah.
Or if I I had back pain or something, I would come and be like, my back hurts. And she would be like, look at me. And you're going to tell me you have back pain. Walk back out and come back in here and tell me something better. You know what I mean?
Her.
She was great. She had two kids. She was just, I don't even know how to explain it. She was a boss. She was a boss. She ran everything in the house, was still working. There was never a time where I saw her sad or ever a time where I saw her give up that she couldn't do something. Mm-hmm. They told her she couldn't walk. She was fully had a walker and was walking around the house for hours throughout the day.
Wow.
Just a boss woman. But working with children with disabilities, I mean, I've worked with some older in their 20s also. It's just fascinating to see life through their eyes and how, everyone has their quirks. Everyone has their funny stuff. Everyone has their, that people are kind of going to look at you what are you doing? Why are you doing that? But being around those children or being in the school in general, because in the schools that I would work in weren't schools for children with disabilities. It would be, I'm helping this child acclimate themselves to this classroom. Mm-hmm. And you just really learn to not give a shit what anybody thinks, because we're all just walking this earth trying to figure it out together. And kids are just so cool. Kids can be mean. I feel when they get older. But seeing how kids, kind of like you said, it's a taught behavior, because I've been with children 3, 4, 5 years of age with disabilities in a classroom with other children who don't have disabilities or visible disabilities. Mm-hmm. And they don't look at each other and why are you doing that? Mm-hmm. Or what is that? Or a child who's nonverbal to a child who is verbal. They're still talking to this child as if they're responding to them. Totally. And they're not looking at them any different, So I 1000% agree. It's a learned behavior. It's your environment for sure. And I think we just need to do better. We need to do better with our children. We need to do better with our youth. We need to prepare them, and help them understand things. I have so many books for my son that show children in wheelchairs, that show mom and mom relationship, dad and dad relationship, mom dad relationship, that show old young relationship. There's so many things. There's actually a book that I got sent. It's an LGBTQ plus book, and it talks about queer relationships and how I should go get it. But it's a really, really great book. And I read that to him, like, we talk about everything even though he doesn't understand yet and, like, can't talk yet, but
But
best way
still,
he's
I
gonna
mean, he
understand.
might, and we don't like necessarily know what the difference of just education and exposure to what you're going to go up against in the world. And not saying that you should have to be exposed to everything, but just providing education on the fact that other people exist that aren't just like us, I think is
Yep,
a key ingredient to everybody becoming better people in the future.
absolutely, and I feel like books are the best way to do it.
100%. I couldn't agree more. All right. Well, I feel like that's a beautiful place to wrap this up because
Yes.
that's just a beautiful sentiment to leave everybody with. And I think that it's just really on the money with where we need to be right now. But I'm so grateful to you. Obviously, such a massive fan, but now also just grateful to call you a friend
Yes,
and
forever.
be able to watch you and everything that you're doing for the community and how you raise your son because it's so beautiful and you're such a loving, caring individual in how you show up everywhere for everybody. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, and I hope we can do this again when I'm not sick and you have my full undivided healthy body
A
to talk
hundred
about
percent. We're
everything
gonna
that we
do
could
it
talk
again.
about.
Yes.
Please, I would love that.
I hope that you guys had as good of a time as I did. Sammie is just an all-around queen and so much fun to talk to. I think that we both see the importance in educating youth and talking to youth and making sure that everybody in all communities feel loved. And I really hope that everybody is going to take away from this conversation and feel inspired and feel brave in your own everyday life. Next week, and continuing on with our queer contestants from the circle, we have Chris Sapphire coming on, and the conversation is absolutely hilarious. Chris is everything that you see from the circle and more. We get into topics like Dolly Parton, religion, mental health, and how to just show up for yourself and feel your best every single day. So tune in next week to hear my conversation with Chris Sapphire. And one last thank you to the incredible Sammie Cimarelli. We'll see you next time at the Brave Yard.